Alright, there we are. Yeah, we got it. Okay, hello, 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 hello. There we go. Alright, gonna get started here in a few minutes, so should be pretty easy, hopefully. So, okay, good stuff. Hey, hey, Javed, you can stay for quite some time? Okay, cool. Alright, cool, my friend. Like I said before, you're always welcome here, okay? You're always welcome here. Alright, good stuff, my dude. Good stuff. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, pretty much at this point, uh, one of them's gonna win, and we just kind of have to run with it. That's just pretty much how it's going to be for this election. One person will win, either Trump or Biden, and then that's it. And we'll see what happens in the next 4 years. That's all I can do and say about it, really. I know everybody has very strong feelings for the election and whatnot. Let me move that around. I know a lot of people have strong feelings about the election, but yeah, I'm just more of the kind of guy be like, yeah, somebody's gonna win, and we'll just kind of run with whoever's gonna win, and yeah, we'll be good with that. Should be pretty straightforward. At least I hope so. Anyway, I should probably try Twitch's, beta version of their music thing. Maybe that would be pretty good. I'm not sure yet, though. Sure if I should incorporate that widget or not. Be interesting though. All right, we'll give a. You're learning about significant figures. I got you. Okay, that's fair. Everybody's got a preference. I respect that. Significant figures aren't too bad. They're pretty straightforward. I hope so, anyway. Yeah, it's not too hard. That part's okay. I know you haven't gotten into complete algebra yet, so but with significant figures you should be moving into algebra fairly soon. All right. We'll wait another minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's lesson. Things have been kind of interesting for today's election stuff, so you had a couple of states turn from red to blue. At least those are who are favored. So that was what has happened this morning. The market's gone a little crazy, so because they wanted market wanted Biden to win. That's what the market said anyway. All right, I think we're okay here. All right, let's do it. Let's do it, everybody. All right. Okay, let's get started today. Welcome back to Wednesday. End of the week time today. All right, so today we're going to be continuing moving forward here in Chapter 4. All right, we're going to finish up Chapter 4 here for today. We're doing the, well, that's actually not the end of the week time because we got actually one more class on Friday. Right, we got the makeup class on Friday. I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, our next class is going to be Friday at 10 o'clock. That's right, we did decide on that. So, yeah, I'm more used to being Wednesday being our last time we meet, but hey, that's okay. All right, so today we're going to be talking about percentages, and then we'll be looking at some word problems here involving percentages of some variety. All right, so this will be important here when it comes to talking about, let's say, again, how to interpret percentage problems in terms of decimals and whatnot, and again, word problems involving decimals of some variety. So let's go ahead and take a look here at how we can go ahead and take care of some percentages. Okay. Alrighty. So let's get a Word document going here. All right. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is in section 4.3 is talk about how we can express percentages. So, of course, when we talk about percentages, we want to be able to convert from a decimal to a percent and convert from a percent into a decimal. So let's talk about the first one here. So let's convert a decimal to a percent. Okay, let's talk about that here first. All right, so if we're given a decimal number here, and we're asked to go ahead and move it, change it to a percentage, pardon me. Well, the first thing that we're going to do here, actually, let's talk about the key here. The key here is to go ahead and move the decimal place over to the right 2 places. So what does that actually mean? Essentially, if you want to find the percentage of something, the percentage will equal that decimal, and then basically you multiply that by 100. Okay, that's the same meaning as moving it over 2 decimal places to the right. Now, what it depends on, of course, is getting to that decimal. Now let's take a look at several examples here, and let's show you exactly how we can find that particular decimal in certain circumstances, and then go ahead and convert that into percentages. All right. So the first one here, let's take a look at this one. So let's say I had 0.13. All right, let's say I had 0.13. And I wanted to go ahead and express that as a percentage. All right. Again, I'm going to move that decimal point over 2 places to the right. Okay, I'm going to move that over 2 places to the right. So what percentage are we going to get here if we do that in this case? What percentage do we get here in this case? Okay, great. 13%. That's right. So you move this over starting from here. Move that over 1, 2, and we indeed get 13%. All right, sounds like a plan. All right, so far so good. Let's try another one. Let's try how about 0.075? What about 0.075? What percentage is that? All right, that's correct. 7.5%. Spot on. Nice, nice. Okay, so not too bad again. Just taking that decimal point, moving it over 1 and 2, and there you get that decimal point will stop between 7 and the 5, so 7.5%. All right, let's look at another one here. How about 3.2? How about 3.2? All right, that's correct. 320%. So remember, percentages are not from necessarily 0 to 100. You can also express it above 100%, so 320% is also acceptable here. Again, it's like if I had, say, 3.2 times the amount of something compared to what I had from before, or something like that. Okay, now all those, not too bad. Now, there is one more here. They do have some, say, fractions and whatnot, so I'll put a fraction here. And all you have to do for the fraction is just go ahead and then compute out the decimal of the fraction here. For example, in this case, if you did 7 out of 20, you're actually going to get 0.35 here as a result. And then you can go ahead and take that from that decimal conversion and convert it directly into a percentage, that being 35%. Okay, so you can go ahead and again, that shouldn't be too hard to do. But again, if you do encounter mixed numbers or again, fractions or whatnot, again, convert them into decimals and then, proceed to go on from there. Okay, so that's converting from a decimal to percent. Now let's look at the other side of things. Let's convert a percent into decimal. Okay, now, albeit the first part here is like, albeit the first part here is okay, the percent into decimal here is going to be a little bit more important because a lot of calculations are going to require us to go ahead and put percentages back into decimal in order to do some applications. So let's see how we can convert some of these percentages here. Now, of course, let's talk about the key here specifically. The key here is to move the decimal place over to the left 2 places. Okay, so we're going to move left 2 places instead of moving right. That's the biggest difference here. Okay, so let's start off with some examples here. All right, again, if you want to find the decimal here is going to equal the percentage divided by 100. So instead of multiplying by 100, you divide by 100, and you call it cool. All right, good beans. Okay, so now let's do some examples, and let's see if you guys can get some of these decimals down. All right. Let's go with 71%. Let's go with 71%. How can we write 71% as a decimal? I'd write 71% as a decimal. 0.71, that's correct. Very nice. Very nice, very good. Again, what you're going to make the assumption here is you're going to make a small little assumption. So let's at least take a look at what that is. So it's easier to kind of view here. Grab this. So if you have 71%, what you're going to make an assumption here is that this decimal point is right here next to the 1. And then you could just move over 2 spots to the left. So this is where you get, 0.71. So if you just have like a nice whole number like 71, make sure that decimal point is to the left, all the way to the right, and then move left 2. Okay, let's look at another one here. How about 0.05%? All right, so 0.05%. What's that as a decimal? 0.005, that's correct. Good. So 0.0005 here. All right, so you're going to add 2 more zeros as you go left 2 spaces. Okay, so not too crazy going on here. All right, pretty easy. Yeah. All right. Wow, I like that name, King Fluffy Socks. Love that. All right. All right, let's go ahead and do one more here really fast. Let's go with 527%. All right, 5.27. Excellent. All right, easy peasy. Okay, so 5.27 would be 527%. Yes, perfect. Okay, so not too hard. I think you guys got that. Pretty nice. Okay. All right, not too shabby. Not too shabby, crabby. All right. All right, any questions about that? Nope. All right, simple, simple. All right, next, there's one more thing in this section here that we will cover, and that's talking about writing the percentage as a fraction in lowest terms. So now I'm not going to spend too much time in this. I'm just going to spend maybe one example on this. So basically, they just kind of ask you, say, if you had, say, 16%, for example, and they want you to write it as a fraction in lowest terms, all you have to do here is go ahead and write to 16 over 100. And then you can reduce that down appropriately. That's 8 over 50, that's 4 over 25. So you can write it like that, that'd be 4 over 25. That's how you write that. Now there's also decimals in here as well. So if you had, say, 1.2%, for example, then what you could do is you could write it as 1.2 over 100. You could make that as whole numbers there. So the way to do that is just multiply by 10. And so, again, you'll have 12 over 1,000. And then you can reduce that down to 3 over 250. Okay, so again, I'm not spending too much time because honestly, it doesn't have like, honestly, this last part here doesn't have a super large meaning to it. We very rarely, if ever, use it. So for what we want to do, it's going to be more of the practical application side. Okay, so I just want to point that out there and just say, hey, there you go. It is what it is. All right. All right, so that's pretty much section 4.3. Okay. So, all right, we're done with that. Now that we have a good idea about how to use percentages, let's go to section 4.4. Let's actually look at percentage problems. All right, so now we'll get to the actual, say, word problems and applications of percentages in some variety. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and write out an example here because this is one of those things that I would say definitely does have a lot of bearing and meaning. As we've talked about before here throughout the course of the semester, we've talked about how math is essentially another language, and we've been able to, one of the tips there for word problems was to be able to interpret the problem here correctly in order to go ahead and, set up the problem here again properly to do our calculations. Now, in this case here, the key here once again is that interpretation. So I guess the interpretation of certain words is really what the key is. So let's look at an example and let's show you exactly what we're talking about. So let's say this is our question here. It says, what percent of 25 is 16? And they ask us, okay, we have to find this, quote unquote percentage here of what percent of 25 is 16. Now, there's only going to be two parts that we're actually going to significantly care about here. Okay, so the numbers by themselves are just there. They could be whatever numbers you want them to be. They could be like 15 for all we care. Whatever. Doesn't matter. 15 and 10 doesn't matter to me. What matters to me here is a couple of parts, or three parts here. First of all, let's look at the first one. Sorry about that. Okay. There we go. That's a tad bit better. Okay. Oh, here we go again. Okay. So let's talk about the first part here then. So let's look at what percent. So we're going to underline that part there. Now, when we say what of something, okay, what percent is basically an unknown quantity? So an unknown quantity here will be x, okay? We're just going to call it x, and that's basically our unknown quantity, all right? So if you see the words what number, if you see the words what percent, if you see the words whatever, what of something, then that's going to be an unknown quantity of some variety. Now, The next one that we're going to look at here, the next word that is just as important, is the word of. You're probably saying, well, hold up a second. Of seems like a pretty plain word. Well, in mathematics, of actually does have a very significant meaning. Of, in this case here, means to multiply. Finally, we have the word is. And the word is here means equals. Okay. So is means equals. So if we put this all together here, just by breaking it down the language that we see here in this problem, what we're going to have is we're going to say what percentage of 25 is 16? Well, we have x times 25, x times 25 equals 16. So what we have here, if we just kind of rearrange it a bit, we have 25x equals 16. All right. Are there any questions about that so far? No? Okay. Now, what do you think we should do next? How do we solve for x here? So this is the interpretation part here. Now, what do we do and solve for, how do we solve for x here in this case? Almost. Not quite, though. Not quite, though. Let's think of it this way. So the reason why I'm asking this question here specifically, yes, divide by 25 to both sides. Now, the reason why I ask this question specifically is because we're going to be talking about algebra in chapter 6, and this is, like I said, the beginning throes of that algebra. All right, just starting to understand how this works, okay? And so I want to get x by itself, but the way we get x by itself is we want to divide by 25 on both sides. So what it'll look like is it'll look something akin to this. So I'll write 25x equals 16. Here we divide by 25, but since we talk about algebra, we always talk about balance. And because we talk about balance here, we're going to divide by 25 on the other side as well to balance things out. So basically the 25 and the 25 will cancel out. And then on the calculator there, you could go ahead and figure out what 16 over 25 is. I believe I know what this is off the top of my head. So that'll be 0.64, okay? And then we convert this decimal here. Now remember, this is still a decimal. So if this is still a decimal, yeah, that's right. We have to convert that to a percentage. Correct. 64%. Okay. And that's how we get our final answer for that problem. So what we look for is, again, we look for those keywords there, like what number or what percent. Well, we look for the word of, and we look for the word is. And all these problems here are set up in that manner to basically be set up in the same way pretty much every single problem. It just depends which, how it's written. But if we know what each of the words mean in the problem, it's really honestly not too hard. Now, having said that, let's look at some word problems here. Now that we have a good idea about how to set that up, let's look at some word problems and let's see how we can work with those. All right. Let's take a look here at number, let's go with, let's go with number 7. A worker earns $28.50 per hour. If she receives a 7.5% pay raise, what is the amount of her hourly raise? So she's making a 7.5% pay raise.